Welcome to another episode of Enter the Unknown. I'm your host, Hayden Thomas, and I wanted to do something a little different today, kind of engage into a bit of adventure, I suppose. I love to consider myself as an adventurer, and this whole podcasting world has been quite an unknown for me, and I'm really excited about it. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit just more about myself and some of the adventures that I've engaged in, and shamelessly promote my company, Stokes Picks, which is a nicotine-infused toothpick company. And the big adventure in that is that I am not a scientist. I don't have a background in biology or any kind of organic chemistry, R&D, no science background at all, really, besides the experimentation that I've always done on myself. What I am and like to consider myself as is a, let's say, flavor specialist, an alchemist, if you will. I was a professional chef for a long time. I ran fine dining restaurants in Aspen, Colorado for quite a while. One of my favorites was Cloud 9 on the resort Aspen Highlands. Ski in, ski out. It's about 10,000 feet. And very famous for its après parties, sponsored by Blue Clicquot, the champagne, sometimes with the moniker Clicquot in the snow, where people tend to get a little toasty after skiing and spray champagne on the ceiling. Wild restaurant to work at. Some of my favorite memories are doing tableside truffle shavings at $30 a gram, shunk 30, shunk 30, shunk 30. A very fancy place that also did snowcat dinners in the evening. And so we'd work all day on the slopes and then turn the restaurant over and wipe off the champagne and do white tablecloth 6-course dinners in the evening, transporting guests up and down the mountain. And because I was a chef for so long, I really built a strong palate, I would say, that helped me with my flavor expertise. And I then eventually started a kombucha company. It was Elevated Elixirs, Aspen, Colorado's first kombucha brewery, in fact. And I really liked to consider that company a top shelf kombucha company because of our flavor profiles. My personal favorite was the turmeric hops, very rich and savory. We would harvest local hops right off the vine every year, cure them, dry them, infuse them into a tea that we would then flavor the kombucha with. I would source organic raw turmeric from Hawaii, get it shipped in, juice it at low temperatures to retain all of the raw vitamin and mineral nutrient profile that you could get from the turmeric. And we had so much fun creating flavors in that company. Simple ones that were really popular, like pomegranate blueberry. We did a whole line of yerba mate flavors as well, sparkling yerba mates like black cherry was very popular as well. Some of the more fun ones, we had Alpen Glow, which was like a hibiscus coconut fusion. So very kind of pink and sunset, dreamy, big floral bouquet. It was just a delicious flavor that was very popular as well. And of course, our flagship flavor was the strawberry ginger, which we also used organic raw ginger juice for. We sold that by the thousands of gallons to kegs all across the state of Colorado at the time. And that was my first real adventure into entrepreneurialism. And it was my first company that I started myself from the ground up. It took an incredible amount of work. It was a lot of trial and error, inventing all the formulations, as well as navigating all the regulatory hurdles that it takes with any kind of food product, but also one that is fermented. And so you have to ensure that it's below the legal limits of alcohol that people can ingest. And that just continued to evolve with my adventure of life into starting this new company, Stokes Picks, which I started with a few friends, actually, a couple just comrades who I've known through many years through my exploits in paragliding and speed flying, rock climbing, and traveling around the country and visiting electronic music festivals. And these guys were just as close to me on the dance floor as they were on belay on a cliff in the Canyonlands in Indian Creek in Utah or something like that. We started the company right around COVID, kind of a tough time to start a company, but it made sense to start a product that was available online so that people could purchase without, leaving the safety of their home, so to speak. And then the beauty of a toothpick, of course, is that you can kind of chew it anywhere, whether that's like, at work, in a restaurant, or on a plane, in a car, in an office setting. There's no smoke, there's no vapor. The beauty of the toothpick also is that it's biodegradable. It's made from natural wood. The wood that we use, in fact, is American white birch, which I'm very proud of for a few reasons, because it comes from a sustainable tree forestry, which is large scale agriculture. Essentially, it's like a big farm. But this company, shout out to Hardwood Products out of Gilead or Gilead, depending on where you're from, in northern Maine. They have a 1-for-1 tree initiative where for every tree they cut down, they plant another. So we kind of had a joke in the beginning of the company that, every toothpick sold equals one tree that they replant. Of course, that'd be a lot of trees for the amount of toothpicks that we're selling now. And yeah, sustainability is really important to me. It's hard these days. The more you learn about your impact on the earth, the less you want to do. You don't want to increase your carbon footprint, right? So why even own a car? Just only ride a bike and only walk, and all the things that come with society's influence on the decisions that we make, whether you believe them to be true or not, that, cows are producing so much methane that you shouldn't eat meat to help save the planet. I myself ascribed to that belief for quite a long time. I was a vegetarian for about 6 years, and raw vegan for a big portion of that. I lived in Maui, where it was really easy to live a vegan lifestyle. It's very popular there. There's lots of vegan restaurants, and all the little grocery stores have vegan options for you, and all the delicious desserts, and all the high protein things that you're kind of hoping for and looking for. And of course, the bounty that is Maui. There's constant choke fresh avocado and pineapple and mango and macadamia. And I was fortunate enough to live on a large property where I grew a lot of my own food, in fact, and there were avocado and mango and macadamia right there on the property. And so I was able to really nourish myself in a way at the time that I thought was incredibly healthy and better for the planet too. That was before I learned about regenerative agriculture and how important it is for ruminants, the hooved animals, to help sequester that carbon with their natural life cycles. But I digress a bit. I started on sustainability and toothpicks, so let's reel it back in, because we're going to talk about Stokes Picks. And the flavoring is something that I still believe myself to be an expert in. And that's why I think that Stokes Toothpicks, just like Elevated Elixirs is a top shelf, top tier toothpick company. Honestly, the best in the world. We're trying to position ourselves as the world's first and only organically flavored toothpick. And so I use all natural ingredients and organic formulation. They are sugar-free, which I think is a massive bonus for people who care about their health and understand what they're putting into their bodies. Most companies like Zins and others, I believe, use different forms of sucralose and dextrose, which for the most part are formulated in laboratories and don't really have a lot of health benefits, and certainly have the potential for carcinogenic effects. They're bad for you. Pouches especially, because of the microplastics and how they kind of abrade the gum liner, you're potentially absorbing microplastics in your bloodstream when you're using pouches. And that, of course, is an endocrine disruptor, which is not good for your health. And so the all natural organic wood is just so much better for you for so many reasons. The toothpicks aren't necessarily a smoking cessation aid. Our company doesn't try and promote them as a way to quit smoking. Almost the opposite, in fact, that we consider it to be a performance enhancer. Nicotine is a nootropic, so it improves neuroplasticity, improves brain and memory function, helps you focus, right? It is energizing in a way. It is a stimulant, of course, but it's also a very leveling and calming. And so you are energized, but you're also calm at the same time. The benefits of nicotine have been known for a long time. You can kind of go back to the days of yore and the London smoke shops and coffee shops where, writers would sit and smoke and drink coffee and, really get into their flow state of creativity by, sharpening the mind's focus. And the picks themselves, I think, can be used in a way that is really good for you. Nicotine for a long time has had a really negative connotation because of the association with smoking, and that tobacco, when burned, of course, creates tar, which can give you lung cancer and has a host of other negative health effects. And that's really well known. And so most people who are unfamiliar with nicotine have an aversion to it. It's kind of a natural tendency, a fear, if you will, to enter the unknown by trying something they've never had before. An experience like that, especially when you think of it as bad or unhealthy, isn't something you want to try. But nicotine, although addictive, can be considered good for you, in that there are lots of studies now that have come out. And I actually took some notes today because I'd love to share some facts with you. One that's really exciting is the study from Vanderbilt, which is the Mind Improvement Through Nicotine Dosing, or MIND study, which actually was able to show that you get enhanced memory and function in people with cognitive impairment. And what's beautiful is they are now actually prescribing both preventatively and symptomatically nicotine for people who are exhibiting symptoms of early dementia through Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, because nicotine is actually good for your brain. It can actually help grow and rewire those synapses and actually give you better function through the ability to focus. It's really good, especially for people with ADD or ADHD who have a hard time focusing. Oftentimes a drug like Ritalin will be prescribed to someone with ADD or ADHD, which is also a stimulant, but it similarly has that calming effect, which allows people who have the hyperactive mind to really focus in on what they're doing. Some of the studies that I recently learned about that I found pretty interesting and I wanted to share with you and how it relates to performance enhancing is one that came from the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. And this study was done in 2021, studied a group of baseball players. And it showed that nicotine improved their reaction time, obviously their cognitive function, and even their hitting accuracy, allowing players to have both a better hitting average and their ability to hit the ball where they want it to. So that's not just hitting the ball, but those of you who know baseball really well, there's a lot of statistical work at play with where you want to hit it, not just in terms of where the ball hits the bat, but then where you're hoping to project that ball into the field based on where the defensive players are standing, perhaps where your teammates are standing on the different bases. If somebody's on third and you want to try and get them into home, you don't want to hit it so close to a nearby defensive player. Perhaps I could do a whole episode of baseball in the future because there's a myriad of statistical elements of baseball that I kind of find fascinating. I grew up playing baseball, played Little League when I was a kid. I was a third baseman. I did a little bit of pitching. And once I moved out west after growing up in Maine, I kind of dropped my attention for classic ball, team sports, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, because all I cared about was being outdoors in the mountains. And most of that was far beyond the reach of my ability to compete in anything meaningful. Whereas rock climbing, it's kind of an individual sport and you can push yourself as hard or as far as you want to go. And those sports really bored me, honestly. And there's so much television involved and, the forced screen time that comes with that. And really expensive to go to some of the big stadiums and watch the big games. But now that I'm a bit older, I actually enjoy baseball a lot more. baseball is a really long game. I don't watch baseball games. What are they, 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes? But what I do really enjoy is watching the YouTube highlights. I'm a Red Sox guy. I grew up in Maine. What can I say? Curse of the Bambino, for those that even know. But it's been really fun for me to watch those YouTube highlights because they can be 10 to 15 minutes long. And it's the entire game, start to finish, with just kind of the best offensive and defensive plays of both teams. And I will go into those highlight YouTube reels without knowing who won the game previously, without that knowledge on the forend. And so I'm kind of watching the game in real time with the excitement of not knowing what's going to happen at the end. And so during baseball season, I'll let weeks go by maybe, and I could watch an entire series as the Red Sox plays, 3 or even 4 games with one team. And I won't know if they've won the series. I won't know how many games they've won. I'll just go into it, get my little bag of popcorn, which not really popcorn. I'm probably actually eating a high protein like jerky snack or something, and watch the game, pop a pick, of course. And toothpick could easily be enjoyed at a baseball game in a big public setting. And, right now I'm eating an absinthe flavor, which is my personal favorite. And it doesn't have any actual absinthe or alcohol in it. I use an organic anise, which is a very fennel-like flavor, a black licorice. It's one of our strongest flavors, and it's almost savory in a way. It definitely is sweet, but compared to the other flavors, it's one that I can go to almost any time. Whereas, the lemon ginger, which is our mellowest flavor, it's a beautiful pairing with sweet lemon and warm ginger. We kind of say that each flavor, there's 4, have a time of day. And so the lemon ginger could be considered like the sunrise, as a way to wake up, to kind of invigorate the soul with a, citrus, warm, sunny, bright, enlivening effect. Absinthe being this green, like vibrant, vivacious vitality blend, is like a daytime blend. And then cinnamon clove, which many people say is their favorite, is also a very unique flavor. It has a very old world, Middle Eastern mystique to it. We consider that our kind of like end of day, evening, sunset blend. That could be like your last push at the end of the day, driving home from work or something like that. You pop it in, get yourself that 20, 30-minute commute, pop in your podcast, listen to your favorite audiobook or whatever, and really just zone in. And then the most popular flavor, the 4th flavor, is vanilla mint. Vanilla mint we consider our kind of after dark. That's the evening. It's dessert-like with the sweetness of the vanilla and the very refreshing and good for your oral health peppermint, of course. Vanilla mint is my favorite. At the end of the day, I'm always trying to focus on my fitness and my health, and always trying to improve, always trying to learn, always trying to get better. And something I've learned about myself is that I tend to oscillate through keto and not keto diets. And because of that, my carb cravings just roller coaster. Like sometimes I've got it so bad where I just ate dinner and I'll do anything for a cookie or some ice cream or some chocolate. And I've been building much better behavior around that. It takes discipline, it takes practice. Chocolate especially, I'm a sucker for chocolate. I was a chocolatier, I would say, for a long time. I used to throw little improv parties called Dance for Chocolate, or D for C, for those who know, where, it might be a music festival, it might be at the base of the gondola. They could happen anywhere at any time. And I'd kind of cruise around with some friends and some dancers and some music and a little boombox going. And I'd have a big tray of my super dank, raw, organic chocolate. And there was only one rule. I'd give you free chocolate, but you had to dance. And you had to really dance. Sometimes I'd say like 30-second minimum, but you couldn't just give me like a little shuffle and then say, okay, give me the chocolate. No, I want to see like a dance move I want you to like break it down and earn it, and then you get the free chocolate. That was the dance for chocolate. So it's been hard for me to break the end of day dessert cycle, so to speak. But that vanilla mint at the end of the day, because nicotine is such a wonderful appetite suppressant, it's been very calming as well for me at the end of the day. You know, I've got my monkey mind racing about all the business work that I have to do, my endless to-do task for the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. This year, 2026, is a massive year for me. I'm getting married. I'm going to go on a honeymoon. I'm going to multiple other weddings. I'm going to 3 weddings, including my own, in 1 month this summer. In fact, I'm going to be guiding moose hunts in northern Maine. I'm going to be teaching paragliding in the mountains of New Hampshire. I'm going to be doing some recreational guiding and taking clients into the mountains. And so the amount of, cognitive load sometimes can be overwhelming. And at the end of the day, the calming focus of that vanilla mint is so nice. And it keeps me from getting fat and eating cake at the end of the day. So what can I say? I'm a sucker for all of that. There are a few more articles here that I've learned about recently that I wanted to share. Things that I hadn't heard about before, some groups that I wasn't aware of, included the Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience. They did a comprehensive review, and that was titled Significance of Nicotine and Nicotine Acetylcholine Receptors in Parkinson's Disease. And what that really highlighted is how nicotine shields dopamine-producing neurons, reducing inflammation and oxidative stress. And so those elements can really drive disease. It's wonderful that, with the advancement of science, we're looking at compounds such as nicotine that used to have such a negative view as elements that can help everyone in our society. And most people, myself included, probably know of someone who either has experienced dementia within their family, or maybe once you get to a certain age, you just have grandparents and such that kind of go down that cognitive rabbit hole, if you will, falling down and saying, Alice, where am I? I'm lost. But I think that, anything we can do to improve our brains in the long term is always going to be beneficial. And I certainly didn't have this outlook on life for a long time. I wasn't even very health conscious until maybe age 30 or so. It wasn't until my late 20s that I even really paid attention to like organic, or understood what organic was or why it mattered. All through my 20s, I drank a lot. I certainly killed a lot of brain cells. I've had some traumatic accidents as well. In some of my adventure sports, I've had a few concussions. So everything I can do to help boost my cognitive performance, I'm going to it. And I think it's important that as I learn, I share with you, I share with my friends, I share with my family, so that everyone can benefit from this. And, I don't want to be perceived as like a snake oil salesman. I think there's a lot of truth in, nicotine as a performance enhancing, substance that can be good for you. Of course, it's got to be used responsibly. I should have prefaced all this with like, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I'm certainly not a scientist of any way. This is all anecdotal. I know it works for me, and I read things off the internet. Maybe I'll read a few more things off the internet here. There was another study in the NICPD. It was actually funded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, famous person with Parkinson's. And that showed to modify disease progression by improving motor symptoms and cognitive in the early stage patients. So that's kind of what I was alluding to with almost preventatively using nicotine as people are maybe only beginning to show signs of that cognitive impairment and falling into potential dementia. I think that's really cool. I've never been a huge Michael J. Fox fan necessarily. I only really know him as like a famous person who has Parkinson's, but the fact that their foundation, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, was actually sponsoring these studies and helping people understand why nicotine is good. The last one I wanted to share, this is also through Vanderbilt. This is the Vanderbilt study, Neurology, back in 2012. And it was just nicotine treatment of mild cognitive impairment. And that revealed that in 6 months use, memory loss was totally improved. And as a precursor to Alzheimer's, which echoed actually the 2021 meta-analysis in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience. Nicotine's molecular insights confirmed its ability to enhance cognition and reduce symptoms in Alzheimer's patients. And, it's silly, but, you could just think of a toothpick as like a tasty way to kind of invest in your brain's future, so to speak. Those are just a few of the studies that I found quickly with a little bit of prep that I did for this episode. I didn't want to go too far with that because, it's kind of boring. It's like cool because it relates to my company and what I do. How many of you are actually going to go and look up the MIND study? Some, maybe, I don't know. There is, a lot to be said about the world of stimulants and nicotine being, one of the world's most addictive substances. And, I'd be remiss if I did not state that it is a vasoconstrictor. And so for athletic performance, although that study was done about the baseball players, I myself am really careful about when and how I use the nicotine. I'm certainly not doing it like right before I go for a heavy strength training program where I'm in the gym and I'm lifting weights or any kind of HIIT training or anything like that. I'm also really careful about what time of day I use it if I'm in any kind of like recovery, because I just don't want any more constriction when I'm trying to get as much blood flow as I can, essentially, to all the different muscles. I'm trying to get jacked, whether I am pumped or I'm going to get pumped or I'm recovering from a pump. All that being said, I do use them in a way that is incredibly beneficial for myself. I tend to get up pretty early, 5, 6 a.m. Oftentimes that's before daylight, in fact, and I have like a nice kind of calming meditation yoga routine. I'll drink a liter of warm salted water. Now that I have my amazing dog, I'll take him for a little walk, might be mile and a half, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. Then I'll come back into the house and kind of get my first like caffeine going in the day. And that really kickstarts my day. Then I'll go get some exercise. And then the way and the timing that I use the picks that I find to be the most performance enhancing and beneficial is when I'm in that slump, so to speak. Typically for myself, I don't use nicotine before noon. I just find that way I don't build a tolerance. It is addictive, but I also do a few different cleanses and detoxes every year. Last year, 2025, I did a 100-day detox on nicotine. I did 2 different 30-day caffeine cleanses as well. One of my favorite detoxes that I have ever done, last year, I did a dry fast. So that was 36 hours, no water, no food, no water. And I made that, I want to say it was 5 days total. And so I bookended it by day 1. I did liquids only. And so that was like green drinks and broth and electrolytes. Day 2, I had salted water only. And then 36 hours were nothing past the lips. Closest thing was probably swishing my mouth with water after brushing my teeth. And then the other end of that, the other side of the bookcase, was I went back into just liquids. So that was just water again. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 5th day, then I did green drinks, bone broth, and I had a smoothie for dinner on that 5th day. It was just a basic protein smoothie, no fruit or anything like that, just some whey powder and water. And by the 6th day, I felt amazing. What was incredible was I was still urinating the whole time. I learned a lot more about ketosis and how when you are in a very strict water fast, actually your body will turn fat into water. And that's how a camel's hump works. actually. And I didn't know that either. And that's how they're able to go long distances in the desert without water, because the camels are in a pseudo state of ketosis as well, converting their fat into water. And so, the use of the nicotine daily is something that's important to me. And it's something that I just kind of track. I want to make sure I'm not using too much, because you can never have too much of a good thing. Is that true? Is that a cliche? I don't know if that's true. I'll let you decide if you think too much of a good thing is a good thing or not. But my favorite is like the first pick of the day, which for me is usually that kind of crunch between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. At that time of the day, I'm usually in my lab and I'm either working on some toothpick formulation and stockpiling some inventory, or I'm crunching numbers on a spreadsheet, or I'm just online. I'm looking at a screen, I'm answering emails, I'm talking to different vendors and different clients and getting lots of different work done. And the screen time is what really tends to bog me down. And I pop a pick and it's like, boom, I'm laser focused back in. I also really appreciate, shout out to Rhonda Patrick and Found My Fitness, because she taught me something, or at least I learned something from her about exercise snacks and how invigorating it is every 20 to 45 minutes, say, especially if you're sitting in an office, or even, I tend to stand, I have a standing desk, but I sit sometimes too, that, that lack of movement, that lack of mobility can really be counteracted by 20 minutes, take a break, vigorous exercise. And so I might bust out 10 pull-ups and 10 push-ups and do a wall sit, or, I might do a 2-minute plank and then a 2-minute abdominal hollow hold kind of thing. And I'll mix up the different little routines that I do. I'll run outside barefoot and do 100 air squats kind of thing. It doesn't take very long, but I come back and I'm just so jazzed and the blood is moving. And I find those effects to be immediate and really good for my overall balance of life. But of course, nothing like the mental stimulant of a pick. And I got to say, they're the best toothpicks in the world. And we are now launching our international campaign. We have already been working with a company in Slovakia, of all places. Shout out to Dante Picks of Slovakia. Maybe we can throw a little promo code in the show notes for Dante, but they have been white labeling our picks. We in fact create the picks. We get them over to those guys and then they put their own label on them and they're able to sell them in Eastern Europe, which is really cool. We're looking to branch out into the United Kingdom, potentially Portugal as well. We've got some contacts in those places. And we think that the world could really benefit from this high quality, sustainable, biodegradable vessel for nicotine. Because that's truly what it is. It's, in my opinion, the best delivery mechanism in its sustainability, in its organic flavorings, and in its taste. Sugar-free, it's keto, it's 0 calorie, which for people who pay attention to their health and what they ingest really matters. And for those who don't, we'll happy to help you learn. Let's kind of turn the page in the new chapter of your life about learning what's good for you and what's bad for you, and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I know that the health benefits is something that I really lean on as let's say the mission of the company in a way is that this product is unlike anything you've ever had or heard of before. And, those of you that perhaps were smokers or vapors and are looking to stop, this is an awesome alternative. But although you're still ingesting nicotine, it's going to be leaps and bounds better than a pouch, I'd say, as well. And for those of you that, use pouches, if you switch to the toothpicks, one thing you'll find is they're not as strong. And a lot of people have a hard time with that because, they want that high octane, boom, hit you. The difference is with the activation in the salivary gland through the pouches, as I was saying, it hits you much faster and much stronger. And so you have that peak and then it's gone. And nicotine leads to pretty serious cravings as well. I've heard and met a few guys actually who are just so insanely addicted to the pouches. It's kind of sad. I get a lot of empathy for some of these guys, but I met a fella through hunting camp last year who even would fall asleep with the pouches in his mouth. That's how horribly addicted to them he was. And so if you go from pouches to toothpicks right away, you're going to say, this isn't strong. This isn't for me. But I think that's probably better for your health, honestly. The beauty of the toothpick is, because it's a piece of wood, you really got to work it around in your mouth, and we don't advise chewing on it because it's a choking hazard, right? Because what a toothpick is, as defined by the American Business Association, is a medical device used for oral hygiene, right? Work on that plaque, work on that tartar, and it just releases much more slowly. You're going to have to suck on one side, chew on one side, and then maybe flip it over to the uneaten, unsucked on, unchewed on end before you can even get all of the flavor and all the nicotine out, which takes a lot longer than just slapping a pouch in your gum kind of thing. And so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here before too long. But what I hope is people who are interested in Stokes Picks and learning more about my adventures in health, in extreme sports, in being an entrepreneur, can reach out to me, ask questions. Let me know what you're interested in. If there's more stories about my life that you want to hear, or more things about nicotine toothpicks that you don't understand, I'd love to hear from you. And with that, thank you for joining another episode of Enter the Unknown.